Welcome to the Coach Barnabas podcast. It's time to take a few minutes and leave behind the stuff that drains us and recharge our batteries with some encouragement and insight. Finding the extraordinary in the ordinary.
Hi, and welcome back to Coach Barnabas. Great to have you with us. I'm just going to dive right in, trying to keep this maybe a little short, but I kind of want to continue on the topic and theme of trust. We've talked about trust and faith a lot in recent episodes, and just talking with my wife over the last couple of days, we've really been talking a lot about this topic, and we just kind of go back. We have 3 cats, and we love them very much. Now, up until about 6 months ago, we had 2 cats. The second of whom, well, actually, I should say the first of whom, because chronologically he came. But we have Nemo, Huck, and we have Ludo. Those are our 3 current cats. Prior to Huck and Ludo, we had Finn. And Finn, we had. Now, Nemo is only about 3 years old. He'll be 4 later this year, actually a couple months. And but Finn we got about 9 years ago, 8 or 9 years ago, and Finn was kind of a one of one cat. He was very special, very unique, and I have to admit, I'm relatively new to the whole cat world. I was raised around dogs, love dogs, love dogs, and it's cats were kind of an unknown commodity for me. I didn't know anything about them, had no appreciation for them till I met Sarah. And cats were very much a part of her life throughout, from when she was a little girl to this day. That will never change, and that's fine. That's great. So in getting to know her, I was more exposed to the world of cats, and I have fallen in love with not just our boys. I love them to death. But really, I've grown with a real appreciation for cats in general, and they're great. But Finn, again, was one of one, a very unique cat, even to the, somebody like me who was new to him. Okay. And if you're not a cat person, I think you still would have liked Finn. He had a lot of personality, a lot of character, but we lost him last year. He had some cancer, and we promised ourselves we were not going to let him, or we wouldn't let any of our animals suffer. So we did everything we could. We did, we had some surgery done on him about a year ago, early last year, and we had hoped that would solve everything, and it worked for a while, but then it came back, and it was a bit more aggressive this time, and we just, though he didn't appear to be suffering, it was not going to get any better. It's going to continue to spread, and he would begin to suffer. Though we did see some deterioration in his personality and things, so we had decided we were going to save him of that suffering, but that only started ours. But I don't want to dwell in that. What I want to talk about was one of the things that made Finn so special and so unique was his absolute trust, his complete, utter, unconditional trust of us. Now, he relied on us. I mean, domesticated animals do rely on us for a lot of things, as far as feeding them in giving them water and food and a safe place to sleep. Cats, if you have cats, they sleep a lot. So, there was a fundamental trust there that he never had to worry about when his next meal was coming. In fact, he was so regimented, he knew when it was coming, and he would wake us up early in the morning to remind us, hey, it's food time. But it wasn't just that. When Jeremy, my youngest stepson, was younger, he had a passion for basketball so much, and we live in New England, so many months out of the year it's a bit prohibitive weather-wise to go outside and play basketball. So we had put a little hoop inside the house, and Jeremy would have this mini basketball that he'd bounce around, and he'd shoot hoops in the living room. And there were times when Finn would be lying on the floor, and Jeremy would be bouncing a ball within inches of Finn's head, and he wouldn't even flinch. I mean, nothing. It didn't bother him. He just lay there like, okay, well, show me what you got, kid. And he just trusted us. He knew absolutely that there's nothing, we would never harm him certainly not intentionally. There were times when maybe he ran out in front of us, and we'd trip on him or kick him or something like that as we were walking, or actually step on his tail or his foot or something if he wasn't where we expected him to be and it was dark. He was a black cat. So there are accidental things that would happen, but he knew that under no circumstances would we intentionally harm him. And even if we did something accidental, boy, we showered him with love and treats. So sometimes I think he did it on purpose to finagle some treats out of us. But that's the kind of he just was a character, and he trusted us completely. And just my wife came to me just this morning because last night was an emotional night, just thinking about Finn. We lost him in early October. This is now mid-March. So it's been a while, but it's still very fresh. And while we're thankful that we now have Huck and Ludo, who we wouldn't have were it not for losing Finn, Huck and Ludo were rescues. And so we're very proud of the fact that we turned Finn's loss into saving two other cats from a kill shelter, literally. But at the same time, we just miss Finn. He was, again, just a unique cat. And unfortunately, we lost him really probably about maybe the midway point of his life. So there's still so much life left in him, at least, in terms of numbers, but it didn't work out that way. So it's very painful. But just this morning, Sarah was just telling me that a lesson we get when we're on that side of the equation of being the provider, being the one who they look to and trust and depend on, and the same thing with children. Okay, that they trust and rely on us so much that it really is an image or a picture of our relationship with God. That we need Him, we depend on Him, we rely on Him. But as humans, we have an independent streak, much like cats do. Cats can be very independent and standoffish, and you call them and they just look at you like, no, I'll come when I'm ready to come. And we're a lot like that in our lives, and we're a lot like that with God. It's like God wants to spend time with us, but we're like, yeah, I'm a little too busy for that right now, or, I'm in the middle of something, or I'd rather do something different. And you put God on a shelf and you come to Him suddenly when you have some sort of desperate need, then all of a sudden it's like, oh God, But with Finn, he just chose us, and we'd sit on the couch, watch TV, or lying in bed watching TV or something, and he wanted to be right in the middle of it all. No matter what you were doing, he wanted to be right there with you. If you're changing a light bulb, he was climbing the ladder. When you're having dinner, well, of course, Finn's motivation was not so much, oh, Dad, I love you, as much as, can you eat all that chicken? Can I have some of that? But it really didn't matter what we're doing. If we're washing the dishes, he's up on the counter like, hey, what are you doing? Making the bed. He's right there on it. Part of that was a game to him. But he just was, whatever we did, he wanted to be in the middle of it. He just never left our side. And kind of a lesson with our relationship with God is just an intimacy you have and a trust you have when all you want to do is be with them. And Nemo is very much the opposite. He is afraid of everything, and he's hard to get close to. But there are times when he chooses us, and he'll jump up and nudge up next to us and fall asleep, which is a very sweet thing. We love that. But Nemo doesn't. He's scared of everything. He's scared. He's just a very timid cat. But Finn just had no fear. He had complete unconditional trust in us and love for us, and he couldn't help but just implant himself in our hearts to where we missed him when we were out for a day running errands, doing our thing. We couldn't wait to come home, because when we opened the door, he would come hustling down a hallway from another room and run to see us and greet us, meowing all the way, like he was excited to see us. And that's a lesson. To us, that's a life lesson, a picture of how our relationship with God ought to be, that we want to be in His presence every chance we get. And when we hear His voice, talked about that recently, when we just are in His presence, when we sense His presence, when we hear His voice, that we respond to it with enthusiasm, and just want to be near Him, to crawl in His lap and just be in His presence and ask of to ask nothing of him. We just want to be near him. And when we trust him completely, that, to know that sometimes, no, Finn, you can't jump up on the hot stove. And he might jump up in the stove when it was cold, but it's like, no, ultimately this could be harmful to you. So we'd pick him up and put him back down. No, the stove is off limits. That he wanted to jump up there. He didn't understand why he couldn't until he jumped up there one day. It was hot. And he went, oh, okay, yeah, now I get it. But, and sometimes God says no to us. Sometimes he sees as something ultimately is going to be bad for us. And even though it looks enticing, it looks good to us, it's not for us. And it's dangerous. And he wants us to stay away from it. That we go, okay, God, I trust you. I don't understand it. It looks really good to me. But if you say no, that's good enough for me, and leave it alone. When we have that level of trust in him, he can't help but just want to lavish more and more on us, because we've proven ourselves not only as trusting in him, but also being trustworthy, that we're going to respond to him and listen to him. And when he begins to pour out on us and we don't take those things, let's just say material things, okay? Now, we don't serve God so we can have lots of money and big homes and all that stuff. It's like he's not an ATM machine. But at the same time, it's like when we are faithful in sharing our love of God and his love for other people with other people, then he's going to provide us more and more opportunities. And we're going to find favor with other people, and to where they trust us and they can come to us and they can open up to us, and we can dispense love to them, and to love people who other people overlook and walk past and ignore. That, when we reach out to them and we're compassionate toward them, then we're going to have other opportunities to do this thing. And God will bless us for those things, and to just trust him, to love him so much that, we can't wait to see him. We can't wait to hear from him. We can't wait to be as close to him as absolutely possible. And God wants us to have that kind of relationship with him. The way Finn loved and trusted us, he wants us that much more to love and trust him, and to dig into him and trust that even things like loss, okay, Romans 8:28 says that he works everything together, even the hard things, somehow work together in our lives for our good when we love God, when we trust him, that even painful medicine can be good for us and help us heal, can help us grow and develop and mature. So, I just kind of want to leave you with that today, and just think of, maybe you have animals, maybe you have children, maybe you have children who are animals. That's another thing. But my point is that if you have ever been in a situation where somebody has completely had to rely and trust you for everything, for their life, to take care of them, to help them when they're sick, and even to do everything you can and promise to yourself and to them that you won't let them suffer if it's at all something you can control and manage. I'm going to tell you the story. I think we have a couple minutes. When I was younger, it's a funny story, but I had a next door neighbor, and I'm probably not even 10 years old. I think I was under 10 years old. And my next door neighbor was the same age. He would come over to our house and he'd knock on the door, but he'd knock on the door with the heel of his hand. Okay. And unless you were standing next to the door, you couldn't hear it, because it was just a dull thud, 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 as opposed to a sharp knock, knock, knock when you use your knuckles. And so I thought, hey, you know what? I'm going to teach you how to knock on the door. So his name was Tim. And so Tim and I, one day when his parents weren't home, let's go over to your house and I'm going to demonstrate for you how to knock on a door. Okay. So we go walking up, and his porch was cement, and there was 3 steps and then a 4th step that you take the 3 steps up to the landing, and then you turn right, one more step, and there's the front door. So I tripped on, the 1st or 2nd step on this cement porch, and I landed in such a way that my forearm hit the cement step right here. Okay. And I was in a lot of pain. I'm crying and wailing and all this other stuff. And for 3 days, pardon me, sorry. For 3 days, I lived in this pain. And my dad, former Marine, I may have said that before, tough guy, come on, rub some dirt on it, that kind of thing. He would get on me for whining about the pain that I was in, and I couldn't tie my shoes, and come on, tie your shoes, and whatever. So 3 days went by, and finally, it must have been a Saturday, it must have been a weekend, he took me to the doctor. I don't remember if it was emergency, it doesn't matter. But took me to the doctor, they x-rayed it, and sure enough, it was broken. And so they wrapped me up in a cast that went all the way, literally, wrapped around my thumb, around my hand, above my wrist, all the way up to my shoulder. That's how, so my cast was, my arm was like this, kind of, almost at a 90-degree angle. And of course, as a kid, I've got a cast. All my classmates, all my friends are going to write their names on it. I was excited. Wow, this is going to be cool. But we get home, and Mom was home. And as we pull into the driveway, she's looking through the front room window into the driveway. I get out, and this is before cell phones, so we couldn't text her and say, oh, yeah, it's broken arm. She didn't know the outcome until I climbed out of the car and I had a cast up to my shoulder. And what I didn't learn until I was an adult, and they confessed this to me, was that as I'm running in, like, woohoo, look, I got a cast. My dad had this very sheepish look on his face, like, sorry. Kind of blew that one. I was getting on the kid for crying about tying his shoes and the pain he was in. He had a broken arm. He had that kind of look on his face, but they didn't show me that. And like I said, they didn't confess that until I was an adult. But anyway, I say that to say this, is that, when your child is suffering, when your animals show signs of suffering and hurting, you're going to do whatever you can immediately to take care of them. No, I don't tell that story to say my dad didn't love me. He just wanted to toughen me up. And in that case, he kind of blew it, but no harm, no foul. Got over it. It's a funny story. So I didn't die from it. That would have been worse. And that would have made this podcast a lot shorter. But the point is that we promise ourselves, we promise those who are of whom we are stewards, that we're not going to let them suffer if it's something we can prevent. So knowing that God will not allow anything into our lives that would harm us with no purpose. Now, sometimes he allows things. If you read the book of Job, he allowed things to happen in his life in which Job suffered. Now, God didn't cause them. Understand, God didn't cause them, but he allowed them. And he knew that no matter what happened in Job's life, though he lost everything, he lost his family, he lost his home, he lost his wealth, he lost his businesses, he lost it all. He lost his own personal health. His wife said, look, God has it out for you. Just curse him and just die already. Do yourself a favor and end your own misery and just die mercifully. That even when his friends were saying, dude, there's obviously, God is really mad at you. There's something in your life that God would do this to you. And sometimes our friends give us some really poor advice. Sometimes even our loved ones give us poor advice and think that God did this to us. And no, he didn't. And God knew that even though all these things would happen to Job, he would remain faithful. And he trusted Job. And Job trusted God. They had that kind of symbiotic relationship with mutual trust. And when we have that level of trust in God, that no matter what comes our way, even the difficulties, that we trust that God is doing this, allowing this in our lives, because he knows that we will not turn from him, that he knows that ultimately this will make us stronger, that he knows that ultimately we will use that pain, we'll use that season of challenge and difficulty and repurpose it for his glory, that we have that level of trust and love, and he, these things will work out, and we will grow and mature more because of them. Now, I may have just scared some of you off and said, well, heck, if I could avoid all that stuff by just not trusting him, then all the better. Look, I'm not saying that the more you trust him, the more awful things are going to happen to you, but when awful things do come, and it's life, come on, let's be real. Just this week, I had I'm going through the loss of a good friend, okay, who passed away just the other day, and it hurts. But life is just ugly. It's messy. Bad times are going to come. But the more you trust God, He sustains you through it. It doesn't necessarily make it easy, but you're going to survive. You're going to get through it. And He is there for us to crawl in His lap and find comfort, to find peace. So I just want to leave you with that. Trust God. And when you trust Him and He can trust you, you will experience a new level of intimacy and maturity and growth in your life, and you'll have peace like you've never known, even when things that might normally have crushed you, when they come into your life, you can manage them better, more effectively when you have a perspective of faith and trust in God and you keep your eyes on Him. So that's my encouragement to you today. So I hope you have a great day. Be encouraged, be an encouragement. We'll talk to you again soon. Take care.
Thank you for joining the Coach Barnabas podcast. We'd greatly appreciate your support by liking and subscribing to the podcast and setting up notifications so we can let you know when new episodes are available. We'd love to hear from you, so please leave a comment. Make a difference today.